Hello everyone. This is John Byrne with Poets&Quants. Welcome to CentreCourt, our MBA Admissions Festival. We have 4 terrific guests to present to you today from 4 world-class MBA programs. I'm really excited to be here with them. Many of them are very familiar faces to me and friends. From UVA Darden, right around the corner here, is Donna Clark, Senior Assistant Dean of Admissions. From Carnegie Mellon Tepper, we have Carrie Calvario. Let me say that again. I'm going to edit that out. From Carnegie Mellon Tepper, we have Carrie Calvario, Director of Master Admissions. From UCLA Anderson, we have Gary Frazier, the Associate Dean of the Full-Time MBA program. And from the University of Florida, Naz Eringuk, Director of Admissions and a great advocate for the school. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
So, tell us where you are. You know, there's a lot of uncertainty in the world today with inflation, fears of a coming recession, a war in the Ukraine, the lingering pandemic, not to get everyone down, but where are we in this admission cycle? How do you see it playing out? Donna?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, John. Well, first of all, I'll just give the context that I have had experience at 3 different MBA programs over the past roughly 30 years. And I would say these are challenging times. For admissions offices, I think it's good news for applicants who are applying right now. You have a little bit of a perfect storm with, a strong economy for students that are in the age range of looking at an MBA, sort of driving domestic applications down. I think some uncertainty about getting an MBA right now in this post-COVID era, even though a lot of our schools have resumed to almost, I would say pretty close to normalcy. Having done this for a long time, I do believe that this is a cycle. We're in a little bit of a lull. I've seen worse. But I think the consistency of how many schools reported domestic declines last year made it a competitive market in admissions. But the good news is for applicants who are applying. There's a little bit less competition because there are fewer applicants, and a great year for applicants to consider applying.
Yeah, that's really true. And I also think the best time to apply for an MBA program is in uncertain times, to be honest. The MBA degree is a great valuable degree, great to have. Gary, what's your assessment of the market and the current value of an MBA?
Yeah, that's a great question, John. Thanks for asking. I think my role, I oversee admissions and student affairs and career services, and I can tell you from, the outgoing side, there's still a very aggressive war for talent. We've seen substantial increases in terms of offers, particularly from our summer interns. We've had summer interns that have gotten their summer and their full-time job offer at the same time because it's that much more of a war for talent, and we see firms really wanting to lock away these candidates. So to add on to Donna's point is that, while there's some uncertainty in the marketplace, on the corporate side, we see that there's that interest for these MBAs. So while the market is soft on the admission side, I think it helps people in terms of applying to come in. But when you look at 2 years later, we expect that aggressiveness from the top firms to continue.
Yeah, and it goes without saying that the new employment reports coming out, the early ones already show that compensation levels are at either record levels or near record levels, along with the employment reports in terms of how many people are getting jobs. So it's an incredibly strong market for MBA talent. Companies want young, smart, ambitious, well-trained people. And if anything, what we've seen in the last couple of years is a real labor shortage, not only at the lower end, but even among young professionals. Carrie, what's your sense of the current market and how it's going to play out over the next year?
Yeah, it's a great question, John. And I echo both what Donna and Gary said. And I think sometimes in admissions, you have to have a little bit of short-term memory loss where, I think, we kind of move ahead. Last year, we move ahead and certainly keep an eye on what's to come. I think we see sometimes that in an admission cycle is a little bit counter-cyclical to what you might see in the economy, right? So in a strong economy, folks are less likely to pursue a full-time MBA. And so, when there's, the threat of recession, talks of that, I think folks and applicants tend to start to think a little bit harder about, maybe it was in the back of their mind before of, I think I want to get an MBA, I've hit a plateau, the myriad of reasons that folks pursue their MBA, but it becomes a little bit more front of mind when, there's a little bit of, the change in the economy. And so I think that we'll likely see that, whether, recession, those sorts of things, but we've started to see more and more interest come up of, I was going to wait 2 years until I got my MBA, but I started to think a lot more seriously about it now. So I expect that, the competition and the market for domestic applicants is not going anywhere. I think that we all would certainly agree with that. And so I think that it's going to become really important for schools to fit is huge right now. It's been huge for the last several years, but I think you're going to see schools start to be really intentional about their community, about the return on investment, on all those sorts of things, as applicants are probably considering MBA a lot more. You're going to see schools probably even more than ever, especially now that folks can visit again, but saying, here's your fit at our school. Here's how we think that we can get you that post-MBA job 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. So I think that's what we're seeing right now.
Yeah. All good points. Naz, I'm sure you would agree with them. I don't know if you have anything to add. What do you think?
I was just going to add that I think that not only are we dealing with everything that Donna, Gary, and Carrie have been saying, but I think the pandemic has really demonstrated as well that another competing factor is that people are really questioning whether there's value in going to do a full-time experience or a hybrid experience. So the domestic, pool is down, but also what we're faced with is students want more autonomy to choose a program format that works best with their lifestyle. They want a full-time experience, but they want to be able to work as well. And so it's navigating those waters as well. That is something that I think all of us on this call are also, kind of thinking about, especially because we all offer a vast portfolio of other programs beyond just our full-time offerings.
That's really true. I mean, there's never been more options for people who want to avail themselves of a graduate management education. I mean, there's so many different programs. There's so many different alternatives. There's a lot more flexibility built into the system. Let's talk about each of your MBA programs and what makes them distinctive. Donna, why don't you start with Darden? What makes the Darden MBA unusual, different, differentiated?
Thanks for the question. I would say there are two things that we're particularly proud of at Darden. And one is the quality of the teaching faculty. That is something that Darden has been really well known for a long time. And in addition to us saying that, we are very proud to have performed so well in the Economist ranking for 10 consecutive years on the quality of the educational experience and teaching faculty. There is a lot of turnover in faculty positions in business school in general. It's not unique to Darden. So our dean, Scott Beardsley, has been here for about 6 years. He, under his leadership, has hired 50 new faculty members. And I'm really proud to see the amount of time that is put into screening those faculty members, mentoring them, teaching them to carry on that legacy of excellent teaching at Darden. So that's something that we're very proud of. And then I would say we rely almost exclusively on the case method or Socratic method. The faculty has done several curricular reviews over the years to ask, is this still the most relevant teaching method? And their assessment for our particular school is that it is one of the best ways to develop strong decision-making skills, to put yourself in the place of a protagonist day after day. The students do about 500 different cases in the 2 years that they're at Darden, and we rely very heavily on the case method. I would say one of the benefits of the case method is that in addition to the first year core and all the general management skills that a student is going to get, they are going to get great exposure to different industries, because the majority of cases are set within an industry or a topical area. So they're going to get exposed to over 60 different industries because of the case method. So those are a couple things that we're particularly proud of.
Yep, definitely those two things stand out for me as well. Gary, what makes the UCLA full-time MBA program stand out?
Well, I think we have this really interesting intersection. We start with community. We have 300 plus students in our full-time MBA program. But when you look at California as a state, it's the 5th largest economy in the world. And so students get exposed to industry. Many of our students are engaged in internships during their studies, so not just in the summer. So they may choose a certain track professionally when they graduate, but they may dabble in an area that they haven't been exposed to because that exists, in this large metropolis. So there's a nice partnership with the business community, the community that students have amongst themselves, and our community of educators, because we are unique in that we are this, relatively, when you compare it to some other schools, smaller school in a large metropolis. So, and the other thing, certainly about being in LA, students have to grind for 2 years, and being in the space for over 20 years, I've learned that there's a need for students to decompress, and Los Angeles provides that great opportunity. I know some students that'll surf in the morning before they go to classes, or play 9 holes of golf. I don't think you get 18 in, but they're very active. Yeah, hopefully they'll get 18 in this class. But I think that I think there's that opportunity to balance that work-life balance. A lot of people talk about it after business school when they get back into the world of work. But we know that our students need that mindset when they're here. One of the things we did a few years ago is we created a satellite office of our counseling and psychological services, because we know that it's very stressful going to business school. We found that just that combination of where am I going to work, am I handling the academic load well, am I involved with clubs and socialization. We want students to be comfortable in saying, I can just walk a few steps away to talk to someone about that. So I think today's student is more demanding, as they should. That's something about this new Generation Z student who doesn't really want thoughts and prayers. They want action, and they want results. And I think we have learned to be very responsive to kind of what's on their mind.
Right. Yep. Definitely a stressful time, particularly during the height of the pandemic, which luckily has diminished somewhat, but still lingers. Naz, you have a number of options in your MBA program, and I think that that's one of the distinctive characteristics that you bring to the table, right?
Yeah, so thanks, John. And so at Warrington College of Business, we offer 3 full-time MBA options, a traditional 2-year full-time MBA that allows students to immerse themselves in their fall, spring terms. They're able to really explore what it is that they want to do when they, I would say grow up, but we'll say post MBA, right? Because I don't think we ever really know what we want to do when we grow up. And so they have that opportunity to really kind of figure out who and what and where they want to go. And so that 2-year program is fantastic because it gives them the opportunity for time and for that summer internship. But for those who want to maximize their ROI, we also offer 2 1-year formats, a 1-year all majors and 1-year business majors program. So we're unique in that we offer an accelerated program designed for those who already have a business degree degree within the last 7 years. So they're able to leave the workforce for 10 months. Get in, get out, get that MBA, be taught by that world-class faculty, still participate in all of the other MBA experiences from professional development to career coaching. So at Warrington, I would say differentiator, to your point, John, is that we have 3 different types of full-time MBA options. And we're small by design. We only bring in, this past year, we brought in 40 students. So very small. But what that means is that each of our students get that hands-on, approach from our career coaches, from our academic advisors. They are an MBA family. And so even though they're small by cohort size, they're joining a larger group of, 900 executive online and weekend-based students. So there's still a large number of students in our total network, but the immediate small feel of our cohort, plus the opportunity of choosing which path makes most sense for you to maximize your return on investment, is definitely, I think, a huge differentiator for us.
Great. Carrie, what makes the Tepper MBA distinctive?
Yeah, that's a great question, John. So probably 2 come right to mind. The first we put right on our little Zoom thing. So, and I'm not going to read our branding campaign, but it's just the Carnegie Mellon is so well known for being data, it's data, it's quantitative, it's all those things, and that's really a reputation that we really celebrate, and just the quantitative style of our students. But I think what we're really differentiate is, we used to have this campaign that said it's not enough to be the smartest person in the room. And then it was, really? And it's because if you can't communicate and you can't, speak to your colleagues, speak to shareholders, if you can't get buy-in. And so I think that the Tepper School does a really excellent job through our Accelerate Leadership Center to say, yes, you're going to be taught these, these complex problems, and to use data to inform those decisions and rooted in that. And also, it's going to be combined with, being a strong leader, teaching empathy. They say they meet you where you are, meaning you can come in with such a strong background in leadership, but maybe want to grow in 1 or 2 things. You can come in maybe not having quite the opportunity for leadership, and really get those investments from our executive leadership coaches. So I think it's that. And I think it's also, so we've got 3 formats, now 4 formats to our MBA, 3 part-time formats in our traditional 2-year full-time MBA. We say it's the same MBA, different formats. And so same faculty, same coursework, same graduation requirements. So you can transfer really seamlessly into the full-time program from any of our part-time formats. So let's say you start out, maybe you're not quite ready, or life situations keep you from, moving your life to Pittsburgh for 2 years. Things change in a year. You have the opportunity, because it follows the exact same curriculum and the exact same standards, to transfer into the full-time program, complete an internship, recruit, all those sorts of things. And so we really pride ourselves on the design of all of those programs, that they are all one program. It's just how you choose to attend them.
Right. When I think of the MBA market in the last 10 years, I think of significant changes that have occurred. More investment in professional development, more one-on-one coaching for students, more emphasis on data analytics, more learning by doing through experiential learning. More schools are doing global immersion trips. But I wonder, how have the students actually changed in the last 10 years? Donna, what differences are you seeing in the class you just entered versus the class you admitted 10 years ago, I guess at Tuck back then?
Yeah, I would say I unmuted, but then it decided to mute itself, or somehow muted again. Sorry about that. I'm definitely seeing more international diversity. So in this year's entering class, 43% of the first year full-time class are international students. We had a record number of countries represented, 48 different countries. The previous record was 40 different countries. So wonderful. When you walk into Darden, there's the Hall of Flags, and a flag is there to represent every member of the community, whether it's a student, faculty, or staff who comes from a foreign location. And really exciting to have 48 students from around the globe. We had a record number of students from Africa, with 22 students from Africa this year. High percentage of students that are first generation, 16% of the entering class were first generation students. We're striving for more diversity in terms of women and underrepresented minorities. Still have some progress yet to go, but there's a lot of effort at the institution around diversity, equity, and inclusion across all elements of the program, including admissions. So I would say the diversity internationally in particular is something that really stands out to me. I would say too, one of the questions that we ask on the application that is new, that I think has given great meaning to reading to me, is we ask a question regarding whether or not a candidate has had to overcome any personal challenges or hardships that may give us additional context as we're reading their application. And it has been very illuminating to me to see how many applicants have overcome or are still navigating some pretty significant life challenges. And I think related to that, I see a lot of applicants who are very mission driven, very values based, and using sometimes some life experience to make changes for the better, even if it's not something that they're going to pursue professionally, to use, positions of power for good causes. And it's nice to see that trend, and nice to see that people feel more open about disclosing some of the challenges and hardships that they have navigated. So I think that does give us additional insight and is given us great meaning as we're reading applications to have that broader context.
Yeah, I bet that gives you a much deeper understanding of your candidates and where they're coming from and what they've had to overcome to get as far as they have.
Yeah.
Barry, what over the last 10 years, what differences have you seen in the students that you enroll in your MBA program?
Yeah, I mean, I think to your point in terms of this need for personalization, I think that comes from a couple of factors. One, the cost to run these top business schools go up every year, and as a result, the cost to attend goes up, and so it's gotten to a point where I think students 10 years ago were coming to business school to leave their job, and then they were going to figure out what they were going to do when they got here. And today's student is taking much more of a calculated risk, meaning that they have a little more of a sense of what they want to do. I mean, 10 years ago, they were write great things in their essays, but once they got there, they're kind of like, well, we're really not sure. We knew we had to write some great things. And now they do have a little more of a sense. And the students are looking at it as a little more of a return on investment. And that affects us in a couple of ways. One, as I mentioned earlier, this kind of war for talent starts that much earlier. We I think in 2015 started a summer quarter for our incoming students, and we still do that. But what we've done over the years is we've introduced the majority of our career services in terms of our career readiness series in the summer quarter. And by doing a summer quarter, they're allowed to take, students take a couple of classes, earn some credits. They also get this Parker Career Center series done so that they're ready to hit the ground running in the beginning of the fall, when companies are starting not only to come, but starting to interview now. So that's dramatically different than 10 years ago. So
Right.
We know the students have a little more of a sense of what they want to do. We take them through a process to make sure that's the case, or to pivot before the fall. And they're ready to go after those career opportunities earlier, which is what the market's requiring. And it all is driven by, the investment that student has to make, let alone the loss of wages if they're going full time. Just that it's going to be much more of an investment. And they know that they have to execute well to get that payoff with the job that they're thinking about getting.
Right. Naz, what have you noticed in terms of your students' interest in the last 10 years and how they've changed?
Yeah, so I think that kind of, I think of this question twofold, right? I think of it from an admissions perspective of the sense of like, as a prospective student, what do the programs have to offer in terms of, I think Donna brought up a great point, right? It's about diversity, equity, inclusion, and access. And so that has kind of helped to create something that we've all been working on, is creating a more diversified classroom experience that will then help diversify our future leaders, right? And I think so that's part of it. But as a student, I think that to Gary's point, there's so much that has evolved in the last 10 years. And in fact, what a student who is entering the workforce today, the soft skills, the quantitative skills, the analytical skills, these just continue to evolve. And so there's actually a lot more that our students are expected to know and learn and do. And that has to be supported by the program itself. And so you brought up a great point about the experiential learning. Donna brought up about the case studies, case methodology. These are all really important because, of course, all of our students who go through any MBA program, will they learn about supply and demand and the 4 Ps of marketing and all yada, 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 of course. But it goes above and beyond that, right? It's learning about, storytelling, Excel training, it's about learning, whatever new AI technology is out there, right? And so the amount of grit, as well as the eagerness and the desire to do more and learn more, that is what we've seen the evolution of our students from 10 years ago to today, because this is ultimately what they need to be differentiators, to be the future business leaders, to be brand ambassadors for each of our schools. And I think it's one of those, it's exciting to hear. It's exciting to be a part of. And in fact, as before we got on this call, we were talking about the fact that, in fact, I'm not in Gainesville today. I'm actually in DC, helping to support our full-time MBA students who are here at the Reaching Out MBA conference. And so it's, how do we support our students from a career perspective, from a professional development perspective, from a personal perspective? So, we're also here at Warrington in the process of hiring a well-being director, because that's an important facet of being able to be a successful, not only student, a successful human, to maximize your potential. And so, for us, it's that full package. We talk about holistic admissions. Now let's talk about the holistic MBA experience. And that's something that we are truly dedicated to.
True. Now, Carrie, your school adopted a new phrase, a new tagline, the intelligent future, in the past year. I would suggest to you that in some way reflects the changing needs of employers and what you're teaching students. Am I right?
Yeah, you're very right, John. Thank you for pointing that out. And so it's the power of data reimagined by humans. And so I heard our Dean Isabel Baju say probably last week, she doesn't like the word data driven, because data doesn't drive it. Humans drive it. And so, it can be data inspired, it can, and so I think that that's something that our students are really looking for is, okay, that we know that we're going to get this quantitative background, we know that we're going to be on the cutting edge, similar to what Naz was saying. And so, but let's filter it, or let's add in the human side of things to be able to make sure that we're making these decisions ethically, that we're being inclusive on our decision making. And so it's been something that's really, really focused on. And I think our students and the students we've seen coming in aren't afraid to call you out a little bit and say, okay, but where's the action behind this? I think that that's a trend that I've really seen in the last 10 years. And especially as we've launched this new campaign, to be able to say, okay, then let's get the community behind this. And let's see really how this is implemented. Okay, I see it in the curriculum. Let's do that. Let's bring that support in the community. How are we supporting just the city of Pittsburgh? How are we being just citizens of Pennsylvania? And so it's the human side of things that's driving these data decisions, that's driving all of this. And I think that's what we really focus on is, the human side of things.
Yes. This past week, the Wall Street Journal ran a story that basically said the reason why applications are down is largely because of the cost of the degree. Now, we think that actually applications are down because companies have really held on to their employees very hard. They've given them promotions and they've given them raises to keep from losing them to great programs like yours. But to the extent that cost is a factor in one's decision to either go for a full-time MBA, Donna, do you think the MBA is too expensive?
I think that I'm paying a lot of attention to a survey that was done by ClearAdmit, in which they surveyed 1,244 students who started the MBA journey and decided not to apply, and about 52% of them said the number one reason they decided not to pursue the MBA was because of the cost. And I think business schools, I think we should pay attention to that. And then I would love to just help educate prospective students that many schools have robust scholarship budgets. I'm really proud of what our dean, Scott Beardsley, has done to raise money for scholarships and increase both, merit scholarships that are given through the school, as well as scholarships that are given through the Darden School Foundation. So the cost has risen, but the access that we have to scholarship money has risen more. And so sometimes people, are struck by the sticker shock, right? And we want to make sure that they're aware of the return on investment of an MBA, as well as the resources that are available to help students pay for the MBA. So yes, I do think cost is a deterrent. I mean, that was a pretty well-researched study. I agree with you, John, that a significant factor in this is the job market. And we've seen that happen over the years. GMAT has a chart that shows strong economic times and weak economic times, and you can see the relationship. During strong economic times, applications tend to decline, and during a recession, usually there's a little bit of a lag, and right after a recession, applications will increase, and we're coming out of very strong economic times. But I do think cost can be a deterrent, and we want students to look at the ROI and take it a step further and see what each of our schools offers in terms of scholarship support.
Yeah, and this leads me to a common mistake many applicants make. They look at the price tag and they assume that's what they have to pay. That's number one, because there is a lot of scholarship support out there, a tremendous amount, in fact, and there's been even an arms race among deans to raise money for scholarship support. And then secondly, they look at starting salaries and then make the ROI equation based on what you're going to earn in your first year out of school. Gary, tell us why that's the wrong way to think about return on investment for an MBA.
Well, I have an MBA. I got it many, many years ago when it was less expensive, but the salaries were a lot lower then too. And I tell people all the time, the number one thing I got out of my MBA was confidence. I felt that if I was going to go into this competitive program with 300 or 400 people that were equally skilled and competitive and kind of run with the pack, so to speak, there's lots of things I can do. I have a doctorate degree as well too, but it was my MBA that helped me really believe that I can achieve the things I want to achieve. And that's what a lot of these schools are focused on, not just about the skills to get that first job. I always tell students the first job isn't the most important job. Why would you want your dream job right out of business school? You want to evolve into that great job. And that requires leadership skills. It requires learning how to work with people that are different than you. And those are the things we focus on at Anderson, as all of these top schools do. And so typically, someone's in their 20s, say, maybe they've, our students average about 6 years work experience. And so they may be thinking in the short term because they have had a short runway in terms of work experience. So that's why they're thinking, well, what's that job once I get out? And certainly the numbers are good. Our students typically see an 85%, I think our average 85% increase in salary pre-post. So the salary is there immediately, but beyond that, it's what career path is it putting you on? What opportunities are open to you now and moves that you're going to make? And I always tell students and prospective students to talk to alums of the schools you're interested in and hear those stories. Hear the stories of someone who's been out 3 to 5 years or 7 to 10 years. And then they'll start to think, oh, this is a longer term play. But even before that, again, for me, this level of confidence, you can't put a price tag on that. I've made certain career decisions, I've made certain moves because of my MBA, and I think that's the thing that you really can't put a dollar figure on.
And it's a long-term return. I mean, it's not only the 85% increase above your pre-MBA salary. It's seeing more opportunities throughout your lifetime. It's building on that increase immediately after your MBA. It's having that network that kind of looks out for you and that basically makes your ability to grow faster, to move quicker in your career with friends and people that you wouldn't otherwise have. Rather than continue on that, I want to talk about assessment. How do you select the applicants that you select? Naz, are there secrets to this selection process?
There are secrets,
Are there
and we can't
things
discuss
that
them.
you can't find out by reading your website? No secrets. How do you assess a candidate?
Yeah, no, and I think that in today's time, especially as I would say that our availability as admissions officers are and representatives is we are able to meet with candidates wherever it's convenient for them, right? And so pre kind of pandemic, I think a lot of us, we would do our roadshow where we'd go to career fairs and things like that, or various grad fairs. But I would actually say that the best way to kind of get your foot in the door is really to start having the conversation with us, right? And so, it's really going back to that culture fit. So now at Warrington College of Business, what makes a good, candidate? As I'm talking to prospects over Zoom or over coffee or whatever it may be, I'm looking at coachability. I'm looking at grit. Donna, I love the fact that you asked that question about what have you overcome, because we offer a similar question. We also have a question about what does inclusion, diversity, equity, and access, what does that mean to you as a candidate? Because at the end of the day, we want to be able to read through applications. We get hundreds, thousands of applications. So what stands out are people who, are forthright, that are coming to us, that are, as we're even starting to think about the application process, they are willing to pick up the phone, talk to us, figure out how competitive they are even before they've started the application process, because that demonstrates their willingness to go above and beyond, right? But it's also their willingness to follow through. And that's something that all of us want in our MBA. So it's, demonstrating some grit, demonstrating that they're willing to kind of take, a little bit of a harder path or maybe a little bit more difficult path, that they want to demonstrate to us that they're ready to roll up their sleeves and do this MBA. Of course, we're all looking for, strong professional experience, for, good undergraduate performance, because we want to make sure that you can handle the academic rigor of our curriculum. Of course, we want to see that people can still score well on the GMAT exam or the GRE, but ultimately, what I think really makes or breaks a candidate is their ability to articulate what is, why they've gotten to the decision where they are today about pursuing an MBA. They don't have to have a crystal ball, but they have to know their story and understand what they can bring to this larger MBA community.
Great. Carrie, how do you select MBA candidates?
Yeah, probably similar to what most folks can say, but the one thing that I'll add, so there's the academic component, there's the can you be successful in the curriculum, because it's not fair of us to bring you in if we don't think that you can be successful. And there's different ways to show aptitude. Naz was, I echo everything that she said. One of the things that I'll build upon is from an employability standpoint. We've, in the admissions office, we meet really regularly and communicate with our Master's Career Center and kind of pick their brains a little bit on like, what are employers looking for? Is there anything that we should look for? And we've kind of shifted a lot of our focus, especially when it comes to our interview on not only coachability, but as being a good teammate, being a good leader. It kind of boils down to a really simple question of, would I pick this person to be on my team? Would I choose them if given the opportunity? And so I think it's that demonstration of it, and that goes along with fit. It goes along with an understanding of the type of program that candidates are applying to. If you know that you're applying to a small, tight-knit environment and community, you shouldn't set foot on campus and be surprised that they're going to have teamwork, or you're going to have group work, or you're going to have these projects. And so it's kind of been resounding as we've really worked closely with our Career Center over the last couple of years, that one of the first questions we hear that recruiters are asking in the interview process is, tell me about yourself, tell me why you want this position. And so it's that ability to tell your story. One of our career counselors told us the other day in the admissions office, she was like, listen, I could get anybody in this office a job in banking as long as you learned how to tell your story. And as long as you could articulate that. And so she used banking as an example, but it's that relatability, and it's ultimately, would I choose this person to be on my team if given the opportunity?
Right. Now, Donna, you've been a pioneer in adopting more flexible policies on standardized tests. I wonder how that has played out for the school, because I'm sure that now you have some data probably on those early admits who were enrolled without a standardized test. How did they perform in the classroom?
They're performing well. The reason that we decided to take a more progressive view with regard to standardized tests is because many of us who've been in the industry for a long time at Darden feel that it is, 2022 now, and there are alternative forms of compelling evidence to prove that you're academically ready. It is no longer, 1950 or, where we only have access to a standardized test or GPA. There are Coursera classes. There are so many certifications, such as HBS Core, our own Coursera classes. And our hypothesis was that we should broaden the way that we evaluate academic readiness beyond just standardized tests and undergraduate GPA. I think I was concerned that we were losing out on really high impact leaders who, some stellar applicants are not equally stellar standardized test takers. And we didn't want those stellar applicants who tend not to perform well on standardized tests to be penalized in the process. So now students can apply for a test waiver in advance. And we recommend this for students who do have alternative compelling evidence. So maybe they have a master's degree in a relevant area, or they have significant certifications and or work experience. We do look for multiple lines of evidence that they can do the work before we will waive a test. But we are studying the policy to see how they perform in the classroom. And after looking at the data, decided to continue it this year. I do think that if the Supreme Court rules against affirmative action, I would imagine we're going to see an influx of more test flexible policies, in the industry. So that is another thing that we're watching that will impact assessment is the ruling. The Supreme Court is hearing in October and will be announcing their ruling in the spring.
Right. Gary, you have thoughts on how you assess candidates?
Yeah, I first want to say that I think I'm going to hop on a plane to fly to Pittsburgh to hire try and recruit this person that could get anyone in banking. That's a pretty impressive skill set. But, our process really involves community. And that means that, we want to see applicants, not to say that they're just applying to business school, because they can apply to lots of business schools. We know applicants are applying to more and more business schools. We want to know that they want to apply to UCLA Anderson, and we want to know why. So a big part of our process, obviously there's the quantitative pieces like standardized test scores and GPA, and also a number of years of work experience. But there's the qualitative pieces of, where did you work? What kind of projects did you do? Were you able to show signs of leadership in those work experiences? Your recommendations and certainly, your essays, but not just, here's what I want to get out of this degree. It's also about what do I want to give? How do I want to contribute to this community? And a big part of our process is we have we call them the Mission Ambassador Corps, and it's first and second year MBAs that are very heavily involved in the process, from doing interviews to hosting our big admit weekend. First day of orientation with our incoming students on August first, I told the incoming class, part of your responsibilities is help us bring in the next class. So we make it a community approach. Everyone's involved in the process. But from the applicant side, we want to know why, Anderson, why you're compelled to even apply and why you can see yourself here in our environment.
Yep, good point. I can't believe it, but we're out of time. I could spend another couple of hours, frankly, with all of you. And I wish we had all that time. For everyone out there watching, let me tell you what your next step should be. You should go to the websites of each of these schools. They're filled with incredible amounts of information on the programs, on the admission requirements, on the career outcomes of the graduates. Do your research. When you apply, make sure it's intentional, make sure it's purposeful, make sure you want to be in this program, and answer the questions that are being asked. Donna, you know that people sometimes, you'll ask a question in an essay or on the application, and they won't answer it directly. And that happens. So, spend the time, invest the time in learning about the school, the program, the culture, its strengths, what it can offer you, how it aligns with you as a person and your career goals. And you're going to make a really better decision if you do that. Gary, Donna, Naz, Carrie, thank you so much again. It's been a real pleasure. And for all of you out there, this is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Thanks for watching.